All right, we are getting started. Welcome, everybody. I am Peter Bowden. I'm so glad that you're here for this session, which is on faith formation, digital ministry, COVID-19, and really our context. And this is our seminary edition. So these are a lot of things I'm talking to congregations and ministry leaders about. But this session is part of a seminary's digital ministry unit. So it's an asynchronous unit for a seminary class looking at digital ministry. So a lot of people are going to be tuning to the recording of this. I know we've got people from Meadville, Lombard, Star King, Harvard Divinity School. I heard about Boston University. So wherever you are tuning in from, in the comments, and whenever you're tuning in, feel free to let me know what school you are attending. So say seminary student at school. Then also ministry leaders, what your role is. So just in the comments, let us know who you are, where you're tuning from. I see my friend Michael tuning in, others, and just so you know that it helps me to keep the conversations going. If you comment, doesn't matter when you're watching this, and I love emojis. So lay some emojis on us. Let me know how you're doing. All right. So for this session, I want to cover I'm going to have three primary sections. Part one, as a consultant, trainer, and coach working with religious professionals, congregations for pushing 20 years now, I want to tell you the story of how the way people connect with, engage with congregations, and their path, really formation process of getting involved in congregations and just developing as leaders, whether you talk about spiritual development, leadership development, or faith formation, processes changes. So I want to tell you the story of kind of how that's changed radically all the way up until pre-COVID, and the growing discrepancy between the way digitally oriented people have been trying to connect with faith communities and what leaders in the congregations expect. And that discrepancy is really making it harder for a growing number of congregations to successfully connect with the people who might normally find their way into the lives and hearts of those congregations. Part two, I want to share just a quick overview of some of the strategies I've been advocating that our congregations, ministry leaders use to engage the just digital audience. So I'm just going to give you an overview, just so you can understand and this again is going all the way up into pre-COVID, my work with congregations, what I've been advocating, what leaders, their responses to that, some of the challenges. For years now, I've been doing trainings on church, social media, and membership growth, how do we move people into relationship with a congregation, move them from being online into the hearts and lives of the congregation. And also, since COVID hit, I've really focused on helping religious professionals and congregations bring their ministry and leadership online using video. So through my Video Ministry Academy, I've been doing that. And I'm in high experimentation mode. What's working for leaders? What's working for congregations? Just so we can keep learning and adapting in these times. Part three is, I just want to take time to talk about where are we now? What's happening with congregations, people engaging with different resources online, ministry leaders. There's so much happening. And I know that we have divinity school students tuning in, clergy, other staff, other ministry leaders. And so whether you're just starting out on your ministry path, like professionally, or deep in the trenches in congregations and deep in Zoom, what's happening? What do we have to start thinking about? And so just really put out there some of those issues. I'm going to challenge you a little bit to think about some different possibilities and scenarios which you can keep thinking about and debating moving forward, and be in touch with me, and maybe we can do some more sessions. Now, specifically for those of you who are seminary students, during this session, which is going to go, depending on the questions that come in, up to an hour. Oh, wait, I got to open up one more window for my communication. I got a back channel set up with one of our classes here. All right, excellent. For those of you who are seminary students, I want you, as I'm sharing some of these stories, observations, learning, I want you to really keep in mind, what was your path to getting involved and really developing as a leader and moving into ministry? Like, what did that process look like? From relationships, and just hold that in your heart, your mind and heart. And then think about, what is the process that I'm describing for helping people really engage with our congregations, whatever content you are sharing, whatever learning, inspiration, and just like, what's this digital process that Peter's talking about? Like, what are the difference between those? Your path, what I'm talking about, and especially, what is your vision for your ministry moving forward? Because one thing I'm learning, or I mean, I'm not learning, but I'm engaging with, is the discrepancy between where ministry leaders, what they feel they signed up for in terms of ministry, what the world looks like now, and what it's going to be like moving forward. And so we have to kind of like keep an eye on, like, are those things in line? It's like self-discrepancy theory, if you're familiar with that, like but with ministry. So just think about that, because like, as I'm talking, if you're like, oh, that's not what I was planning for my ministry, or I had no idea that was happening, really note on paper, what are the differences that strike you? And feel free to comment publicly wherever you're watching this. And this is broadcasting on YouTube, Facebook, some Facebook groups, I think kicked out to Twitter, all over the place. Just want to share this with as many of you as possible. So before I move into part one, please, in a comment, let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you're a divinity student, what school you're at. I said we've got Meadville, Star King, HDS, a whole bunch of people tuning in just that have reached out to me. Let us know where you're tuning in from in a comment. And if you're a religious professional, staff, volunteer in a congregation, tell us about your role, okay? So, all right, part one. Dun, 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 dun. So first, I'm Peter Bowden. I work with congregations as a trainer and coach, working with a range of issues. I grew up Unitarian Universalist, working with volunteer teaching, then advising youth group for a decade, developing small group models that really became popular nationally within the Unitarian Universalist movement, developed and launched the Small Group Ministry Network, which still supports small group ministries to this day. That really catapulted me into consulting nationally. But I've worked with youth and young adults, elders in different small group processes, and before all the digital came on, the helping people connect and do spiritual exploration through small groups led to, how do you welcome people into the congregation? How do you do hospitality? And as someone who was painfully shy into my 20s, truth, I really have had a heart for people who are wanting to connect with the congregation but have trouble. So I started doing more and more with greeting outside the church door, membership development, and then just moving on to weaving that into my consulting and training work nationally. Almost went to seminary, but I met and married a minister, Reverend Amy Friedman. Great choice for me. Married a minister, got a job working with nationally syndicated television, working as a producer and educator on PBS kids shows, Curious George, Arthur, Martha Speaks, Design Squad, Peep in the Big Wide World. Anyone? Any PBS kids fans? Give me a like if you're a PBS kids fan. So I just, for years, was doing dual track, congregational growth, outreach, small group ministry, and just working across different age groups. And on the other side, media. And then it was around 2007 when YouTube came out. I'm like, all right, I'm already doing television media, working nationally as a consultant. We're all going to have to know how to use the tools of our time. So I made a conscious decision, we as a family, that I'd study digital media and help us as congregations and leaders more broadly learn to use the tools of our time instead of going to seminary. So I never went to seminary. If you're a seminary student, I am jealous. But there have been some advantages to following this alternative path. Once we started getting into social media and every congregation had to be in the media business, my congregational growth, outreach work, and the media business came crashing together. So I just want you to know that I have deep, deep, deep ministry and leadership experience in congregations, multiple capacities, and broadcast television, digital strategy, and other work that informs what I'm saying. That, and I love congregational life, and I love what we do for what we're able to accomplish together. So first, just thank you for your ministry and all that you do. I feel like one of my jobs in the world is to thank everybody again and again and again, because we never thank people enough. So I should say thank you to Mark Hicks, which gave me this invitation to speak, and to all of you in the class. All right, so let me tell you the story of how the process of connecting the congregation has changed over time. When I first started out as a growth consultant working with congregations, we just had websites. There was no social media. Dating myself, gray hair. And we were talking about, all right, the website's the front door of the church. What happens? If someone is interested in connecting with the congregation, they can look it up online, find the information, like where is it, and see a picture of the building, maybe a little bit of details about it. But basically, they're just using the website to do what you have to do to connect with a faith community, which is visit in person. And so if you want to know, what are these people really about? What's the tone of the congregation? What are they talking about? What are the services like? Do these people like me? Will they like me? Will I fit in? Is this place for me? You had to go to the congregation and spend time among the people. Now, over time, we started getting more and more capabilities with our content online. YouTube rolled out. Then we started getting more interactive social media, Facebook, Twitter. And so there's more opportunity for conversation. And then for the most part, we started using congregations, all those tools to communicate among the people in the congregation to determine if the congregation is right for them. Well, as social media and our digital cultures advanced, at some point, it started shifting from, I'm going to go to the congregation if I want to see if it's right for me. Maybe it's like a friend mentioned it. Maybe I saw something, like I saw signs, like you're holding banners outside your congregation. Maybe there's a protest and you're present, or some other public event. Maybe there's a wedding or a funeral, but now I'm interested in what this place is like. People started shifting to, with all the media available online, videos, audio podcasts, and all the ability now with social media to share, not only share information, but to have conversations. Our culture evolved to the point where people are looking for if they're going to go and engage with, doesn't matter whether it's an organization, an opportunity, a restaurant. When you look at it today, people want to know what they're dealing with, what they're getting themselves into online before they actually go to the place. We're pre-COVID now, okay? So it's like this shift from, all right, I have to visit the congregation, to, I really want to pre-qualify myself for membership and make sure that this place is a match for me, almost like online dating, before I ever set foot in the congregation. Now, not everybody is thinking that consciously, but think about, like, if you want to buy a book, you're on Amazon or somewhere, you're checking out reviews. Oh, 3,000 people gave it 5 stars. I'm in. Only one person liked that book? Forget it. Or restaurants. Ooh, what does it look like? You're checking out Yelp. Whatever it is, we've developed this culture where increasingly we expect to have all the information we need to make a well-informed decision. Whether it's food, something cheap, or something major like a car. Like I don't know about you, but the last time our family got a car, we did not just go to car dealerships and walk around. No, 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 no. We were checking out reviews online. We're researching, all right, what is the best car, fuel efficient for this and that? Narrowed it down. Once we narrowed it down, we're watching videos that show us, all right, what's a car look like? There are people doing road tests of all the different cars on YouTube. And we're like, you know what? It's probably either this car or that car. And once we get to the point where we're like, you know what? I think we want this car, maybe that one, but I think this one. We went and did the test drive ourselves of the two cars, picked the one we wanted, and like we almost knew the car we wanted when we went for those test drives. So faith community, people, I'm just finding that people are really wanting to connect, learn, and get a sense of the congregation before they ever visit. And the challenge for our congregations is that this is asking us to move much of what was processes, classes, opportunities, conversations that happened on site with your staff, with volunteers, after people visited. So if you think, if the process we're using to help people connect with us and start understanding who we are, forming relationships, deepening their understanding of whatever your faith is, and move along this path of this formation process, if the process that we expect people to go through, the whole intro part where the newcomers are trying to check that out, they're wanting that online and we're trying to do it offline, what happens? Your visitors start going down, because think about it like online dating. Is anyone here a fan of online dating? Anyone here in a fantastic relationship because of some kind of dating website? Give me a little like if so. I'm gonna track if you any great online romances. Imagine you're looking for a partner, and a lot of times people talk about finding a congregation, and it's almost like a marriage. Well, they talk about a marriage between a minister and a congregation. But if you're going online and you're going to be like, all right, do I want to maybe explore this person as a potential life partner? What if they have a horrible online profile? What if they don't provide information? What, like, if somebody didn't give you enough information to know if they're legit, would you go on a first date? Probably not. All right, now there's more of a different dating app culture which I'm not familiar with, so I'm gonna shift topics. All right, but here's a specific case. For many years, I was preaching up until fairly recently. I did a service called Friendship in the Digital Age, and I would go around to congregations, speak on digital culture, the impact on how people connect, and everything I was just sharing with you, I would preach about to the leaders of the congregation, and like during a worship service. And I found that whenever I would speak on that topic for that congregation, they'd get anywhere from 2 to 5 times as many first-time visitors on the Sunday that I was speaking, because I found out there are all these people who were wanting to connect with the congregation, but didn't have enough information to go through that process where they're like, yes, this is for me. I'm ready to say yes to actually go into a worship service. And so during those services, when there are all these newcomers coming in, that the congregations are like, wow, we have more visitors today than ever. Well, people who are like lurking online, like, I want to check out this congregation, but I'm not quite sure. That service kind of spoke to them and they'd show up. And so I started asking people within the services, if you're newer to this congregation or even a first-time visitor, during our fellowship time, coffee hour afterwards, after the service, I'd love to hear your story. And there's one story that has just really stayed with me, and I think about often. And I actually took contemporaneous notes. It's like I'm on the FBI, like James Comey. After I talked to that person and I left the church, I went to the car and I wrote down the story. So from my contemporaneous notes, this woman told me, Peter, a lot of what you're saying process-wise is exactly what happened with me. And fortunately, eventually I did come because I'm really happy here. Like, this congregation is my spiritual home. So I asked her, well, how long have you been here? And she said, 3 weeks. This is my third week. Great. All right. So how long were you checking out this congregation online before you actually came 3 weeks ago? I listened. She said, just thinking. It was pretty clear because I started checking it out right after our family moved to town because of my partner's work. When was that? A year ago. A year ago. Wait, so you were checking out like different congregations in the area and just finally you settled on this one? She's like, no. I went to a Unitarian Universalist congregation in another community. When I moved here, I figured I'd probably connect with this one, but I wasn't sure. So I went online and I liked the Facebook page and subscribed to the podcast. And I've been was checking it out, just tuning in. I'm like, all right, so you're focusing on this one congregation for a year. What happened that made you finally decide, I'm going to go from just checking things out online, tuning in remotely, to visiting in person? And she said, I can tell you exactly what happened. I was listening to a podcast, and I was kind of listening to the podcast a week behind, and I was doing dishes in the kitchen, listening to last week's service, and I started crying. I'm like, why were you crying? She says, I was crying because it was breaking my heart that I'm in my kitchen alone when I know I belong with these people. And finally, I'm like, I have to go. So we had a little conversation about how great it was that she was there. But I said, what was not happening for you that kept you from just going? And she's like, I wasn't sure if they'd like me, if I'd fit in. Like, I could hear the services and they were sharing some stuff, but like, I didn't have a sense for what the community was like. Friends, people are looking for a level of certainty about a congregation in advance before they connect. So that's pre-COVID. And we've got a lot of stuff going on now. And so what that challenges us to do is realize that we have to pay very close attention to our process of connecting with people, greeting people online, and really move our welcoming, hospitality, and I believe your really newcomer-oriented faith formation process, whatever that is for your denomination, your congregation, your ministry, move that online. I keep saying pre-COVID because some people are like, all right, we're going to go back to the way things were. Well, this digital scenario is like critical. Now, let me shift gears. Well, I just want to see. I just want to check out the comments. All right. Yeah, we got people tuning from Meadville. Oh, friends, Suffolk, England, Canada, Ireland. Wow, great. We are international, multiple schools. All right. So, and feel free to put some comment if you have questions at any time as we go. Now, so we're in this situation where increasingly people who are digitally oriented, growing up with smartphones, they're used to online reviews, social media, increasingly their norm. It's just popped into my head. I met with a congregation that's like 5 years ago. They're going to be doing new work on a website, and they wanted to talk about just some considerations, help me kind of orient them to where things were, like the whole digital landscape. And they had this great new web volunteer, a new member who does web design. Hooray! So we all met, and it was this volunteer staff, and then everyone with communications portfolio, newsletter, this, that, and then these 3 women who were like owned the bulletin boards. They were represented. But so after I shared some of what I just shared with you, I asked to turn to the web volunteer who's professional, like serious web professional. I said, am I like on par? And again, this is like 5 years ago. And he says, yeah, you are, but I'd actually take it even further. And he said this to them. He said, when my wife and I wake up in the morning we say hi to each other, put the coffee on, and then we both grab our phones and dive into social media. And we see what's going on. We pick up conversations from the night before. We check out the news, maybe a little entertainment. Then we have breakfast and dip back into social media, go to work, do various things, dip back into social media. And he goes on and says, you know what, the way I would explain it is, for us, social media is now the water within which we live. 1, 2, 3 heads pop. Just be like, oh, no. Anyhow, but so like think about that for a growing number of people, whether it's for better or for worse, and there's downsides of social media. We know this, real problems with some of the digital culture and trends. For many people, they're just immersed. And so we need to optimize our ministry strategy for that. We can change some things, we can change behavior, but we have to be aware. So what are the strategies that I just want to flag a comment here, a question. Michael asks, if websites used to be like a front door, is it now more like a living room? I just want to say, Michael, you're doing great work with technology in your digital stewardship. So the website used to be talked about like the front door. Nona Jones, who is the head of Facebook's whole faith initiative, she's really a liaison to faith communities. She talks about it this way. The website is kind of like, she says the website connects people to your social media, which is where they want to see what the life of your congregation is. And so it's almost like your website is she's Facebook biased. She says your Facebook page is like the front door of your congregation or of your house, and going live on video is like you're opening up the door and coming out and talking to people. And then if you connect people into focused Facebook groups with different interests, that's like different rooms within that building. Do we ever open up the door and come out to talk to the people who are on our front porch? So that's a good segue to what are the strategies that I recommend that we use? And again, I want you to think about in terms of, as a ministry leader, seminarian, clergy, staff, volunteer leader, when you think about the process that what you want people to do in terms of steps, like if you think about formation, any kind of leadership development, spiritual development, any kind of formation, that we want people to learn, reflect, have experiences, build relationships, and deepen their understanding, awareness of themselves, of others, in the world. And there's a process. One of the key processes that I love is spiritual exploration through small groups. But whatever your process is, we now need to take into account this digital space. And I have to think of it as like, you've got your congregation, physical space, a building, places where people are meeting in each other's homes for small groups, spaces. Online, you've got social media, different social media platforms, Facebook groups, Twitter, Instagram, whatever tools you're using, Zoom meetings, all these digital spaces where people were able to gather. Some of them are more broadcast oriented with the ability to comment, but almost all have some ability to have interaction. So what do we need to do? I am a strong advocate for using video especially, but we can also use photo and text to bring your leadership online, so that when somebody is exploring, it's like they hear about you and they hear you're fantastic, or they have some need, and their need, talking to people, doing research, leads them to your website, your social media, whatever it is, that they are able to meet certain educational objectives. Who are these people? Like all the things, what would you want to know about a congregation to like determine if it's right for you? certain spiritual objectives. Like, what are these people teaching? What's their philosophy? Do they inspire me? Are you inspiring people online before you're asking them to visit? Or do you expect people to visit, and if they actually attend one of your programs, then maybe they'll get inspiration, right? Which comes first? Increasingly today, we need to be putting the information online and sharing content in ways that people actually get to experience what it is that you're going to offer them. The other thing is that so much of ministry, congregational life, and choosing to connect with a congregation is about relationship. Do I feel like, I'd appreciate, enjoy, and have a rapport with your minister, the person's or whoever's speaking? Will you like me? Do I fit in? We can use video online and very quickly give people a sense of, oh, if that person's a minister, Michael is fantastic, or Amy, and just a short videos can immediately convey what you're like. One of my favorite studies looked at people who were they looked at college classes, and they had people evaluate the professor after doing a whole semester with that individual. So they give them like how many stars. And then they took another group of people and had them watch just like a 2-minute video of the exact same professor and had them rate the person. The people who spent a whole semester with the professor compared to the people who only saw 2 minutes, their ratings were like almost dead on. 2 minutes watching your video is enough to determine like, what's this going to be like? Is it right for me? And so increasingly, what we need to do is make sure that we're not waiting for people to show up in worship services, signing up to do things, but actually having you as a leader, ministry leader, other volunteers, showing up online, on video, whether it's recorded, live, and engaging people in that space. And just think about if people are spending time in these digital spaces and you only sent announcements and PR ads to that space, inviting them over to the other space, like your physical space, and never actually showed up in person, what's that going to do versus actually being present? So there's a lot of things we can do to move, show up in that way. Things that I often talk about is making sure that whenever someone lands on your social media accounts or websites, that they can see who's your minister and have welcomes from that. Have staff explain how to connect with the congregation. And especially right now, as we're in this pandemic, we need to explain to people why it is, and if it is, a great time to connect with the congregation and what that path looks like. Let me just check out for questions. Let me pause there. There's some good points that recently the documentary, the Social Dilemma, which is on Netflix, talks about the division and manipulation that's coming about from social media. So given this, how should religious leaders think about and perhaps reconcile using platforms that are in conflict with our stated values? Well, I just very quickly say I think we need to add the platforms like Facebook are so prevalent and widely used in our society that to think that they're going to go away might be a little naive. I think faith communities could do a lot, to lobby for changes. I think we can organize in that way. But also, I think about it in terms of the mission field. It's getting in terms of like real outreach and evangelism. Where are the people that we want to serve? Like if you're serving a geographic area and everyone moved out of it, would you stay there? You'd probably move, right? You'd have to relocate your church. Or if the majority of the new people were over in this area and you wanted to connect, or the people who are your target audience, the people who are like, we're here to serve these people and they're all over there, you would send people to those spaces. So we need to make sure that we at least have outposts and people who are spending time in these spaces. But, and this is what I think is critical, that especially when we get to the point where we can connect physically again, or even more than we are now, that we can help people be of service as religious leaders, as faith communities, and help people move, not spend so much time on social media because they're looking for something to do, but we're helping them connect with our congregations and move into healthy relationships and leading great lives. And so the more we can use the tools of our time to engage with people who are maybe having unhealthy experiences with social media and just like wasting time just doing online entertainment. There's value to social media, but there's also just like, yeah, you got nothing to do, so I'm scrolling. That we can help them connect with our congregations, our ministry, our justice efforts, spiritual exploration, and that can be really valuable. So what I want to shift now to is what's happening right now with congregations, and where do I see things going in the future. Obviously, so a lot of that, what I shared so previously, was all that was applicable pre-COVID. All right, that shift to online, we need to start showing up online, bringing our leadership into these digital spaces, and doing more things like, and one of the things I'm training clergy to do right now and other leaders is, if you're going to have a worship service, well, what's it about? And why should anyone care? Because we're like in a war for people's attention. You cannot lead people through a formation process, engage them in discussion, spiritual exploration, spark a passion for justice work, or whatever you do, if you don't have their attention. If you can't capture people's attention, you've lost. And they're going to be doing all kinds of other things, from engaging with other opportunities, from entertainment to online education. There are amazing online schools where you can do spiritual exploration, from like, and things like that you get in your TV, like Gaia TV to Mind Valley Academy. It's amazing. Like the things that I'm learning online, man. Oh, am I getting more from my online experiences than the congregation? Ooh, we gotta keep an eye on that. But one of the things we need to do is really make sure that we're showing up and explaining to people what we're doing. This is like Simon Sinek's. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Why is it exciting? What's the value of it? And bring more and more conversations online. So like, if I'm going to talk about climate justice, I'm now passionate about climate change, climate action to address climate change. I could say, hey, come have my church. Say I start a church. This coming Sunday, Peter's speaking about climate justice and a little info. All right. There'd be some interest, right? People care about that. But if I go live early in the week and I'm like, hey, this coming Sunday, we are doing a service on climate justice. Right now, here's what we're facing. And, kind of lay out some things. And I said, I've been studying some resources, including this video, this TED Talk, this book and that book. And here's what our congregation is working on. We've got some great programs, including A, B, and C. And so this Sunday, we're going to be exploring this topic. But right now, earlier, like this, starting today, I want to hear from you how you are engaging with climate, if at all, and if not, what's the resistance? And start sharing with me different stories. And we'll be weaving some of those stories and your ideas, feedback, resources into that service. And so we start, as congregations and leaders, can start engaging with our community in more of an open online process. We're taking the process that previously was just in the congregation, moving it online. And so much of what we reserved for 1 hour a week and programs that happened just off-site, we can start having that exploration publicly online, which makes what we're doing so much more visible. We spark an interest in people. And then they can be like, oh yeah, I care about that. And we can do things like say, hey, if I'm excited about this topic and I'm communicating that on video, live, I can say, hey, if you know anyone who cares about these issues, invite them this Sunday, invite them to join us. And we're also looking for speakers for such and such panel, whatever it is. But so we can engage people in the life and the story of the congregation in a way by showing up online as like human beings, that just announcements and like that, like, oh, we're broadcasting into digital space to get people to go over to that. Totally different. Now, that was a little aside, but so what's happening now? We have congregations that are doing, when COVID hit, we moved very quickly, worship services online. And like, what can we turn, what programming that we had previously offline can we put on Zoom, right? So it's like online worship, Zoom things. Well, what about the return to church? I'm following so many different church leadership podcasts and church leaders in the larger Christian church world who are tracking what's happening with the move back, and some of the trends that are being discussed. Well, going to church used to take hours and hours and hours, but doing it online, it could be like 45 minutes or an hour experience. And a lot of people love that. Ooh, that was nice. There's a stat, Barna Research is doing all kinds of polling. They shared like when COVID hit, a whole bunch of people just did not do anything online. They just stopped church altogether. And it was like 40, maybe 43% or so were engaging with congregations online, their church on, or churches online. And a big chunk of them were going to different churches, not the church that they went to originally, but other churches. And so, we're just seeing that people's habits are changing. And so when we start thinking about, there are a lot of congregations questioning, like, what happens when we go back? Like, do we go back to normal? Well, what's happening is COVID-19 didn't just change things, lock things down for a while, and then everything's going to open up and flip back to the way it was. COVID-19 accelerated digital trends that were already underway, which is what I was talking about earlier. And now it's like we've leapt forward 5 to 10 years. So if you think about ministry wise, like it's like all of a sudden you're transported and we're trying to serve communities that are in 2025 to 2030, like that world. What does it look like? Well, people are looking to do all kinds of online education. We have unlimited sources for on-demand entertainment. People, if you look at the spiritual landscape where people are teaching different material, content, similar to what congregations offer, there's this growing, really an explosion of online learning where individual leaders and entrepreneurs, spiritual entrepreneurs, however you want to call it, are leading online courses. And just the whole landscape, for me, challenges the model of congregations. And we have to think about, if we want to just serve congregations and be a small little community of people who come together face to face, that's going to be really challenging. I think increasingly we need to be looking at what's our mission, who are we trying to reach, who are we trying to serve, and what's the process that we want to help people go through. How do we want to transform lives, address different justice efforts, and really do an analysis of what's the best way right now to accomplish that. Very, very few congregations have any kind of online courses. I think that's going to have to shift. When it comes to small groups, I think small groups are going to be really a strategy that's going to allow many congregations to thrive in the years to come if we prioritize it now, so that people who are connecting to us online right now, we can help them move into relationship and spiritual exploration, community, justice work using an online small group where they really have friends, peers, and meaningful connections. And that can regardless of what's happening with the larger world, digital technology, when we connect people through groups and relationships, that's the glue that keeps people together. This is kind of leaning back on my small group experience. And so, can we as congregations reach out, be present online, let the world know, or the audiences you care about, who you are, what your focus is, and help move people into relationship through small groups that are online now, and as able, move to being groups that meet locally in parks, when we're able, in people's homes. And that there's going to be this dance between your online education that you offer, online programs, what you use your building for. Is it more of a community center over the coming years? And then being able to really build a community, like your core congregation, through small groups. And then as we're able, be able to bring people together. I think that a winning strategy is small groups have always been an important part of all faith formation. Like if you look at Christian discipleship resources, which I've studied for years, and just small groups are kind of like where it's at, like lots of energy in terms of people exploring, sharing, and learning together. So we need to do that. But I think we just have to be really in a state now where, as ministry leaders, and I want to switch a little bit back to our seminarians, that when you look at your ministry and our congregations, you look at your ministry, that we are looking at, well, who do we serve? What's our mission? And what are the ways that we can connect with people that's flexible, dynamic, exciting, and relational? So for me, small groups. We can do online groups, and we can have those adapt, being like in homes and online, and small groups translate very well. What kind of online, on-demand content, programs, offerings can we make so that we can just teach people and inspire people 24/7? And so people who might be interested in us can sign on to a congregation's website and enroll in a newcomer class and actually have a great experience. Maybe they're engaging with others or just watching it, so that process can start anytime, 24/7 for them. And just be a little bit step back from what's traditionally been a building-centric mentality to what is the change and processes that we want to lead, and just looking at the present trends and tools of our time that allow us to do that in new ways. That's just the big conversation we need to have. So let me just check my notes. Online education. Oh, in terms of seminarians who are starting out and ministry leaders who are expecting to be serving in a ministry capacity for a significant period of time, like more time, versus those who are like, this is too much, I'm out. Like I know a lot of people tapping out. People tend to kind of follow other individuals, not institutions. And so I think we're going to see over the next 3 years an explosion of entrepreneurial ministry leaders, online spiritual leaders, independent program, like people who are like, hey, if you're interested in spirituality, boom, Peter's leading meditation and spiritual exploration through small groups and and like anyone anywhere can sign on, and there's on-demand content and this and that, and a library of courses, and we have online gatherings, and maybe a couple times a year we're gonna have a big giant festival. All right, and that's just me, Peter, offering basically doing ministry using the internet to reach the people who love my style. And that we all, like, everybody has these tools now, or can have the tools if they embrace them, and can start leading and doing ministry in ways that are separate from congregation. Some of you are like, check this out. The internet, one of the things it's doing is cutting out the middle person, or the middle processes between the consumer, the person who you're kind of serving, and information. Gary Vaynerchuk, who does a lot with social media. I don't know, any Gary V fans, just give me a V in the comment. Talks about how, like, there are all these different things, services where people would develop goods or information, and it would go through different middle people who would kind of take it and then sell it or feed it to the end user. Once upon a time, well, congregations, religious leaders, they would take the information in the books, now we're going way back, and deliver the knowledge to the people in the pews. And that's how you got your information, right? Well, today, your individual can access all the content that a church would teach and preach without the congregation. You can go from a religious leader, a ministry leader, a spiritual leader, directly to people everywhere via the internet without a congregation in the middle. And so, is that good? Is that bad? Just note that one of the things we're going to see right now, next year, the year after, talking like short term, all the people who've been doing ministry, and like while people are on lockdown and we're adapting to COVID-19, they're going to see this is the time, the perfect time to catch this digital wave and launch independent ministries. So my prediction, and Mark Hicks, I'm talking to you, we can check in on this in 5 years, is that in the future, we're going to see more and more situations where congregations are served by professional ministry leaders who also have their own independent online ministry brands. I said brand. Blasphemer! But like the books, the courses, YouTube channel, podcast, every single ministry leader probably having their own little brand. And that is that online brand that is going to engage a larger number of people. It's going to and help sustain and support that ministry leader, and then they'll have the relationship with local congregations. That's just my prediction. Anyhow, so I'm going to wrap it up. For those of you who are tuning in now as live, I want to thank you for being here. And then for those of you who are tuning in later, we're seeing each other across time and space. Regardless of when you are watching this, I would love for you to comment. And if you have like some big ahas or real challenges, feel free to reach out to me. Email me. One of the things I'm always doing is, besides programming and like coaching for congregational leaders, what I'm trying to do is, I'm using the tools of, like, I'm 2 years ago, I did it because I was worried about climate change and wanted to stop air travel, didn't want to fly all over. I moved my work online and learned how to use online courses and stuff. So like I'm moving to doing more online courses and coaching and digital to be of service to more congregations. But one of the things that's part of my practice is doing regularly, trying to achieve weekly public online strategy sessions, kind of like this one. They're usually shorter. So I'm always open to people emailing me with questions, ideas, conversation starters that we can use for online sessions that are just free on social media. We can just engage and talk. So I would welcome all of your follow-up questions. And if there are enough questions, maybe we can do a follow-up session. I've already had somebody message me over here about branding and social media for spiritual entrepreneurs. Let's talk more. All right. So I'll just end by saying I'm so excited for congregations right now. Especially a lot of you are connected to Unitarian Universalist seminaries. I'm a Unitarian Universalist, so a lot of the people tuning into this, like the first wave of people are UU and then others. We need spirituality, community, justice work, all the things that congregations are about. People need. We need local geographic community. We need your leadership. We need more love, less hate, more love. Every single thing that I think many of you, or I hope most of you, your ministry is about is needed. We just have to use the tools of our time to adapt to the culture and grow the movements, like whatever your denomination is, whatever your congregation is about, figure out the way to make it sustainable. And I feel like anyone who's like, I am on board, we're going to use the tools of our time, we're going to adapt, we're going to thrive, I think you can have a thriving, successful ministry. You have to accept that it's going to look different probably than what you initially expected or what it was like pre-COVID, at least for a while. And because of digital trends, it is going to evolve and adapt and look different than you ever imagined. But if we stay grounded in our mission, our ministry, like what's the heart of it, and not get so locked into like, oh, I thought it was going to be based in this one building. We can thrive, do great things, and really bring about great change in the world and each other's lives. So I'm grateful to be your partner in that, just through my public work and experimentation and conversations like this with seminaries and all of you longer term. So thank you so much. Let me know if you have follow-up questions, and I will talk to you soon. How are you all feeling? Any lingering questions? I think we're ready to wrap it up. That was a long session. Thank you for being here. I'll talk to you very soon. And I'm out of here. All right. Have a great one. I'll talk to you all very soon. Let's see. I'm using StreamYard to push out to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Very exciting. I'm loving StreamYard. Bye, Michael, Carol, Angela. Who else we got? Eli, etc., etc., etc. All right. It's time for my lunch. Talk to you soon.